Richard Skipper celebrates. Every show is a celebration. Richard Skipper celebrates the best in entertainment. Each show, Richard delivers the artists you love, showcasing what makes them unique. Never gossipy. The antidote to a sometimes hectic world. Now, here's your host, Richard Skipper.
Happy Tuesday, everyone, and welcome to the latest edition of Richard Skipper Celebrates. For those of you who are here for the first time, my show is about celebrating life, celebrating artists, celebrating all the great things that we should be celebrating on a daily basis. There's a lot to celebrate today. I just got back from Provincetown, and if any of you have been watching the news, COVID is on the rise in Provincetown. But I did get a COVID test today and it came back negative. So I'm very, very happy about that. If you are here for the first time and you enjoyed today's show, I hope that you will consider subscribing to Richard Skipper Celebrates right here on YouTube. My show, as I said, is about celebrating artists and their body of worth. What makes a great artist? How do they get from point A to point B and beyond? There are other things to celebrate today. There are 3 B's to celebrate today. On this day in 1940, Bugs Bunny made his debut. Very much a part of our lives, at least my life, for as long as I can remember. Also, it's National Bagpipe Appreciation Day. How many of you have listened to any bagpipe music today? Or lately, for that matter? And today is also National Creme Brulee Day. Now, that is something that we could all celebrate. And we are also celebrating the one and only Nicole Zuraitis today. And I want to know, first of all, Nicole, before we jump in, what are you celebrating today?
Creme Brulee Day. Definitely Creme Brulee Day. I'm 100. Can I get some immediately? I'm very excited. What am I celebrating today? I'm celebrating the fact that it's a beautiful day and I got to go and swim with my dog.
That's what kind of dog do you have?
My husband and I have been rehabilitating pit bulls on and off for the last 10 years. And so we have a very large 90-pound, she was supposed to be a foster, but alas, she is sticking with us forever, dog named Bella. And she was afraid of the water. And now she's just like she's Little Mermaid. She's singing part of your world while she's drifting into the ocean. It's amazing to see. So I'm celebrating that little victory.
Now, getting back to creme brulee for a moment, do you make creme brulee? Have you ever made creme brulee?
No, anything that involves fire makes me super nervous. I know that you're supposed to, blow towards the top. I don't even like to light the grill. Do you make creme brulee?
I've never made creme brulee, but I do love to cook, and I am an avid griller. I love to grill. But you're here in Manhattan, aren't you?
Well, I could. Do you want me to be honest?
I want you to be honest.
I was in New York for the last 14 years, but right before COVID, I bought a little place out by New Haven, Connecticut. Literally right before, as a thing for my family to go, for my husband and I to go. Every once in a while, have friends, have parties, and alas, we just ended up staying there. A lack of work, mortgage, rent, lots of things happening. So we decided to park it in Connecticut. But, I've been in New York for 14 years, and we're right now looking at maybe moving back north, maybe the Bronx or something. So if anyone has any leads.
You should consider moving to Rockland County, which is where I live. And I'm only 25 minutes north of Manhattan. And I have the best of both worlds because I live in the country. I have a backyard, but I can be in New York in 25 minutes. And I have a confession to make. I have not been in Manhattan since March 10th of last year.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, being safe is the best.
Being safe is the best thing. And I want to ask you, speaking of which, how has the past year, we're going to get to your career in a few moments, but how has the past year had the biggest impact on you? I know, if I'm not mistaken, and I want to get the timeline right, you were nominated for a Grammy Award in the past year and a half. Am I correct?
Yes, it was December 2018 that we got the news that my husband, Dan Pugach, and I were nominated for a Grammy in the arrangement category. We arranged Jolene by Dolly Parton for our 10-piece band. And that was really exciting and fantastic and very good for the marriage, you know. Back then we were both, because we're both musicians, and it was really a spectacular moment. We got to go to the Grammys in person, 2019, January. Fast forward, and we were like, yes, our careers, they're taking off. We're doing it, baby. Let's go. And then COVID. But
what's the expression? And I know I'm going to screw this up. Life happens when you start planning, or when you least plan, or something along those lines, that you start planning things and then all of a sudden this happens. I had a one-man show that I opened just before COVID. And then, of course, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing now, because my career, I had to find something to do to keep my creative juices going. You live in a marriage with a musician, someone in this business. What is the secret for the two of you? Because I don't think I could live with anyone who is also in this business.
Well, before COVID, we were always kind of at each other's throats going, no, my show's the most important. No, my show's the most important. And we're playing on each other's music. It was ridiculous. And we're constantly, it was, people would say, what's it like to work with your husband? I'm like, it's a nightmare. But then...
I always say about my husband that there's a purple heart waiting for him on the other side. Yes.
Wow, I'm stealing that.
Okay.
And he just became an American citizen, so I hope that he hopefully understands what a purple heart is. But I mean, anyway, so, but then the pandemic hit, and it turns out we're pretty good in a crisis together. I don't know about how you and your husband are, but
yes,
we're really good in a crisis. So we put our heads together. We started we pivoted just kind of like you did, except you've been doing this for years and you're like iconic when it comes to.
Well, thank you for that.
You just moved to the internet.
I just found a different way of doing it. I want to ask you, all the theaters and everything, and of course the entire entertainment industry, hit a brick wall on March 12th of last year. What did your calendar look like on March 11th of last year?
So we have been playing at the 55 bar once a month for, I guess now it's 7 years, minus one. And then I was also at Birdland once a month with the big band. And then we had a tour. I had a tour in Czech Republic, Lithuania, Austria, Germany. I had plans to release my album, which is the little graphic there. I ended up still releasing it during COVID. Not sure if that was the best choice, but still did it. And
well, let me ask you, since you bring that up, I mean, how did COVID affect you in terms of promoting an album that obviously was, I'm assuming, was going to coincide with an international tour? And of course, the international tour is not happening, and you've got to get the word out. Unless you've got a secret somewhere, there's probably not a lot of income coming in. So how do you get the word out about your CD at this time?
Well, luckily we did pivot and make a virtual live stream. It was called Virtual Piano Lounge. We did it every Friday for 14 or 15 months. And we had just a really wonderful audience that was there. So they knew what was happening. And of course we have our mailing list, etc. But my current label, DotTime, was begging me not to release it. But I said, I have to put something out. I don't care if it's a global pandemic. I have lots more music in my brain, and this music already exists, and I want it gone. So it's already done. I already paid for it. put it in the universe and let's see what happens. So it was fine. Like they released it. We had Lydia Liebman do press. It was great. Nice reviews, et cetera, but we haven't been able to tour it. But it's strange. I don't actually mourn it because I'm really looking forward to the next record that I'm already working on. And I hope that, you know, one day it won't be like Laura Nero, but, you know, someone's going to be like, oh, remember the All Wandering Hearts? Did you guys ever check that out? It came out during that global pandemic. No one really heard it, but it's really good.
Trust me, they're hearing it. They're hearing it. I have two questions about COVID, and then we're going to move on.
Okay.
First is, what is the biggest impact that COVID has had on you, both as a human being and as an artist, beyond the obvious things that we're all going through at this point?
As a human being, so you like honesty, right?
I want total honesty. If you want to give it, this is your time.
I'm happy. It made me very ornery and less, not ornery. I'm not ornery at all, clearly. Like I'm a happy, bubbly, loving life person, but I used to be very tolerant of people stepping on me, or not giving me respect, or treating me as though I was beneath them, talking down to me, mansplaining me, all that stuff. I used to just be like, they would just assume that I would take it because I'm a woman who is nice, and it is in my nature to be empathetic and also people pleasing. So, but COVID has quite changed that. In fact, I think that would be my biggest thing. I've been conditioned to think that it's a bad thing to be more not tolerant of crap. But the other part of my brain goes, you should have always been like this. You deserve respect. So COVID actually made me respect myself and my art more. Yeah. So that's that answer.
But where does that, may I ask, where does that come from? Does that come from your upbringing? Does that come from external circumstances? What exactly brought you to this point where you were willing to put up with, for lack of a better term, and there's some more out there that we're not going to use, crap in your life?
Yes. Oh, what a wonderful question. I mean, I would say that just the conditioning of being someone who identifies as a woman is number one. You know, we saw that even when Hillary Clinton was running for president. You know, if she was speaking of above a normal decibel, then she was yelling. And then, or if I come up with an idea, someone else will say, "Oh yeah, I was thinking that," and then take the idea. Well, I mean, I could go on and on and on.
Look at Liz Cheney today. I mean, look at how the Republican Party, a party that she has pretty much been, she has been a part of her entire life, and how these men are treating her in this situation and the way they talk about her. Absolutely.
I mean, I could go into major details, and because it's being recorded, I'm terrified, but also I'm not because of COVID. I used to just literally grin and bear it. Someone would be like, "Oh, sweetheart," like rubbing the back, and then like literally talking my ear off about something I'm an expert in, but they're still telling me all about it as though I don't know anything. And I'm just, oh wow, that's so interesting. And I'm just like, cool. You know, I'm actually really, I'm getting my MBA. I'm getting my MBA. That's what I forgot to tell you.
Congratulations.
No, I'm not quitting music. I just decided that I wanted to learn something new, and I needed a master's degree. And I'm a overachiever.
Well, you know, I'm glad it's funny. I want to ask you about this because we are living in a culture right now where everyone's waking up for better or for worse. And, you know, I heard someone say the other day that they did not even want a master's degree to be referred to as a master's degree anymore, because that is a masculine, subservient word, which I've never thought about before. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, perhaps I disagree because but though my experience is very different as a white woman. master is a whole different
Mhm.
thing. I could totally see how that can be twisted and is delicate. I would actually think that perhaps the master thing is no longer relevant because everyone's saying that now masters is the new bachelor's, and because I'm a full-time artist, I never was going to go back to school ever. I was actually pretty adamant about not going, but that's only because maybe I was afraid to do it. But secondly, I was like, what do I need to go to school for? But then during COVID, I legit felt like my brain was melting and I was getting dumber by the day. And as the thing kept expanding, getting longer and longer, and everything else kept getting canceled into 2021, I just was like, give me a rolling admissions school. I don't care what it is, but I need to do something or I'm going to fall into a full-blown like depression, mental breakdown. So that's the God's honest truth about why I'm getting a master's. I figured it was a good time to do it. But also, if I don't stay busy, I don't know how you are. Are you like this? Like, perhaps if I'm not busy, I'm depressed.
I am too. Absolutely.
Oh, good. Thank God.
No, I am. I have to have a focus. I have something. I have to look forward to what tomorrow is going to hold for me. And one of the things that I will say for myself personally that COVID has done for me is I am focused on the next 24 to 48 hours, as opposed to the bigger picture of what next year will hold and what I obviously I have plans into the next year, but I'm looking at the next 24 to 48 hours and what I can bring to the table with that. I want to ask you and I asked you for a photograph of you. This is you as a 5-year-old. Are you 5 in this picture?
I believe so. I feel like that's kindergarten. Like,
first of all, I love this picture, and you probably have heard this before. You haven't changed a bit.
Mine is the bowl bangs.
Well, we all
my
have those. Boys and girls have those. I love this. Tell us about this little girl.
Oh, this is why you're the king of interviews, Richard. This is why you are legit. This is why everybody knows who you are, because I don't even know what to say. It actually makes me tear up. Like, tell me about this little girl. I'm like, I don't know. Like, this little girl is weeping on camera.
I can break it down for you if you'd like. I mean, first of all, I want to know about your parents. Do you have brothers and sisters? What did your mom and dad do?
Wow. Okay. So that was when my parents were married. They are currently divorced. They do not speak. It's a whole disaster, but they were married then. I have one sister who's younger. She must have been about 2 in that photo. And so at that point, 5 years old, I hadn't yet gone into the growth spurt, which I would say really formed a lot of my neuroses, because I started to like bloom at 10, 9.5, 10. And I shot up really tall and I was really strong, and they made me play on the boys soccer team, and because I was accidentally hurting girls on the girls team, and it was just like a whole disaster. But the 5-year-old loved to sing, loved to play with rocks, was really good at music, but already like a people pleaser. At 5, I would come home from play dates and the parents would say to my mom, her manners are just so fantastic, and she's asking to help with the dishes. Like I was always this like, please like me. Like, somebody like me. At 5. But I could get into more detail about how that exchanged along the years. It got worse over the years, but the 5-year-old girl like loved her grandma and grandpa, and was just like a very lucky girl. I have nothing to complain about. I'm very fortunate to have grown up most of my life with two parents, despite whatever shortcomings they have, which everyone has.
Yes, absolutely. Well,
So
I don't want to go too deep because I don't want to make this, a sad program. But
therapy session.
no, this is a therapy session. That would have been my other profession if I had not gone into entertainment. But as a 5-year-old, your parents did divorce later.
Mm.
Were you living in a peaceful household at 5? And I ask these questions because for me, 5-year-old, being 5, it's a pivotal time in a kid's age for all of us, where I think that things begin to change. Peer pressure begins to be layered upon you. Teachers start defining who you should be or who you shouldn't be. And so it can go in any direction at 5 years old. For me personally, that's what I think. So the household that you were living in, was it a peaceful household with your parents, or did the dissension begin to happen much later?
No, I would say it wasn't peaceful. And I'm always terrified that either of them would be watching, but also it's just the truth, and they're not. They're just not watching. I would love for them.
Interrupting, I'll tell you this just to put you at ease.
Okay.
I have a one-man show, which, about my growing up in South Carolina and coming to New York to be an actor. And before I opened the show, my sister called and said, "Be careful with what you put in the show."
Uh-oh.
And I said, "This is my story, and I will be respectful of everybody and everything. So know that. I'm always respectful of the circumstances that bring us to where we are. I'm all about celebrating." So I ask these questions just to know that I want to see where the path led to the artistic bent in your life.
Interesting. Well, let's just say alcoholism runs deeply in my family, deep.
My father.
Don't you feel like sometimes the creative spirit is often is born from trauma and from
absolutely
and from the need to escapism,
mm-hmm.
And also mental illness also runs rampant in my family. So my previous album, Hive Mind, I dedicated the whole thing to mental health awareness.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I would say it was not extraordinarily peaceful, but on the other hand, I had anything a child could need. I could go, if I showed interest in something, I could do it. So super fortunate in that respect. But on an emotional level, I'd say it was stressful.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Were your parents supportive of you in terms of the things that you wanted to do?
Yes. Well, my father especially. Well, how do you say that? Like, you were just really good at everything, except without sounding like a total jerk. I was just really good at everything that I did. I don't know how else to say it. Even though now as an adult, I realize I have ADD. So like I had my hands in every pot and I would excel at all of them. And I was exhausting myself even, before the age of 15 by doing everything: theater, sports, soccer, international travel teams, tennis, drama camps, dance, basketball, like all that stuff. And every single thing I did it at a high level. So then they would just keep bumping me to the next thing with it until I finally just broke in high school with soccer. Completely just like almost had like a nervous breakdown and realized that I hated hated is not the right word. The community surrounding the sports, they were not my people. I always felt on the outside looking in, despite being, the captain or the star player or the MVP or whatever, I always felt like not at all comfortable in my own skin. I felt like I couldn't be myself. I couldn't do anything. And so I basically had a breakdown in high school, despite, being this international young soccer freak, and just quit cold turkey. And my father, that was pretty devastating for him, but he also understood. And I kept doing tennis, so he was also happy. He's an excellent tennis player. And then that's when I just kept eating like a soccer player, of course, gained 50 pounds. But realized that music and art, that's just where I needed to be. Those are my people. That's where I was always singing Whitney Houston with a hairbrush in my bathroom. I was always sitting down at the piano teaching myself how to play. I was always the weirdo listening to the Eagles and Pat Benatar at camp when everyone else was listening to Notorious B.I.G. You know, it's just like I was just such a weird kid. But I never had time to sit in my weirdness because I was always doing something. And I think that's why now as an artist, I lack focus. I always have lacked a focus. I sit between genres. I do Birdland, but I do 55 bar, and then I do blues, and I also do folk bands, and I'm all over the place still. And COVID, to kind of come back in full circle, has made me be like, focus. What do you want to do? No more crap. Does that help?
Well, you know, let's talk about focus for a moment. I mean, when everything started shutting down, some people retreated, and then some people got very ambitious with, okay, until I can go back and do what I want to do, I'm going to do this instead. Where did you fit in on the spectrum with all of that?
I want to know where you fit on the spectrum of all that.
We'll talk after this interview, and I'll tell you all that.
Definitely, I actually kind of loved the stop. I would say it's the first time in my life ever that I stopped. Otherwise, I would run myself ragged into the ground, doing everything I possibly could. I had FOMO syndrome, fear of missing out constantly. I never said no to a gig. I never said no to an opportunity. I never said no. And now after COVID, I say no all the time. And people are having a hard time accepting my no because they're so used to me saying yes, despite me never wanting to do it. So I began COVID just enjoying the fact that I was with my husband and we had a safe place to live that we had somehow bought right before the housing market went sky high. It was so insane. And I loved that. But then, as I mentioned, you know, depression and anxiety are they're like silent killers of the artistic spirit. They drown the creative spirit. And then towards like August, July, I started feeling like I could barely keep my head above water. And so that's when I started getting more ambitious, decided to get the MBA, started to really think about music, songwriting, what I want to do with my life, what Dan and I want from our lives, if we want kids, if we do want kids, how do we get to where we need to be as artists so that is feeding us as a family, like all these like heavy questions kind of came up and we never had time to address them. So we're still kind of trying to work it out, but at least we had a moment to address it and it's amazing. I actually really kind of loved being home.
Now, obviously you do have a career, so there is some focus there, let's face that. So when all of these things were going on, when you were in school and high school and your soccer and tennis and all those things are happening, when, where, and how did the music come into your world?
So that going back to that 5-year-old girl, my mom saw me singing harmony to Zippity Doodah when I was 5. Like it was playing on the thing and I was harmonizing. And she's not a musician. And she just was like, why does that sound good? What is happening? So she kind of kept it in the back of her mind. And then she tried to have me take piano lessons from my Uncle Bobby, but I couldn't focus. What a surprise. Like women are never diagnosed with ADD until like they're just never. So I couldn't focus. And I was like, why would I learn how to read if I can just hear it? So I would just be like, yeah, I'm reading. Yeah, of course I'm reading. And I would just play by ear. And then he was like, okay, we got to find her a different teacher. So I went to Suzuki lessons, which is basically playing by ear. But because of my lack of focus, I still to this day like can't really read music or rhythm. I can read music.
You know how many great artists cannot read music?
Isn't it? It's and that's why I never really felt bad about it. And then I also, you know, just loved to sing, but I was such like a big girl. It was, like I mentioned before, I was so like big and strong so early that they stuck me on the boys soccer team. So as you can imagine, I like had no self-confidence when it comes to like thinking I was pretty or being sexy or any of those things. So I was never cast, no matter how much I was like, I want to be the ingenue. They would cast me as like Madame Thenardier, and it would like break my heart. But I was studying with this wonderful voice teacher because, as I mentioned, despite anything that happens in a family, I still was able to do anything. And that's why I'm so grateful to my parents, because I was taking voice lessons. Like, who takes voice lessons? I was very fortunate. So I took voice lessons and realized that I had a penchant for opera. And opera at the time didn't judge people based on like their appearance. And so my voice teacher was like, you should do opera. You have a real knack for it. So I started auditioning, and then that's what I did. I went to NYU for opera. But at the same time, I went to the Lichfield Jazz Camp. I got myself a job there by, which I guess I'll back up and say we didn't have a lot of money, but but we would spend it wisely. Or they taught me how to be very frugal or entrepreneurial. So I saw an opportunity for me to go to a camp for free if I worked in the office for the summer. So that's how I started getting into jazz. I saw that there was a camp. I had gone there as a youngster, as a trombone player. I was too terrified, no self-confidence, refused to improvise, refused to sit in the spotlight because I was so like self-hating and had no confidence in myself, that I was like, yep, jazz isn't for me. But then I saw that they needed an intern and I needed an assistant in the voice program. So I made a job for myself, and that's where my love for jazz started. So I was doing opera and jazz. There's that focus thing. Literally.
I'm thinking of, Judy Garland and Deanna Durbin. You probably don't even know who Deanna Durbin is, or do you?
I've definitely heard the name, but I mean, Judy is.
They both did their first film together. It was a short, and it was called Opera versus Jazz. And Judy, as a 13-year-old, had this real jazz sound, which was unbelievable because she sounded like a young adult. And Deanna Durbin had this operatic sound. And believe it or not, one of the executives after the film came out said, get rid of the fat one. And they thought that they meant Deanna Durbin. So they got rid of Deanna Durbin. She goes to Universal Studios and becomes a big sensation, saves Universal Studios from bankruptcy, giving Judy Garland a huge complex because she, being this young girl who was slightly overweight and not the traditional Hollywood child star, she was like in this middle ground. They didn't know what to do with her. And so I hear so many times from other artists, such as yourself, this idea of not really knowing where you are going to fit in.
Yes.
And it's one thing that all of these things are starting to happen for you. What was the turning point where you thought, wait a minute, I think I can have a career doing this?
I mean, not to tie it to body image, but I would say, I got a hold of my body finally in college, and just like grew into it. And I never had any confidence, like I mentioned, and I definitely didn't have any like sexuality confidence. But I like kind of grew into that in college. And then all of a sudden, directors, this is still doing opera, were like, oh, she's a perfect ingenue, despite me still being like a kind of curvy woman. Because I then was breathing that energy rather than wanting it. So, and I'm definitely not saying, oh yeah, I lost weight. And that was, no. It's just that I like grew into my body finally. And then for jazz, it was kind of the same thing. I was just given an opportunity to sing at the Lichfield Jazz Festival, going back to that whole Lichfield thing. And that was another moment where I was like, wow, I think they're pitching me as like the young, like singer who like wears a dress and looks nice on stage. Like, I was like, really, me? Oh, weird. But now 36 years old, this was, 12 years ago.
You're a baby.
Oh God.
You're a baby.
Well, only now am I like, what? This is all so stupid. This is all just so stupid, but it really was like so formulative to my
Nicole, it's not stupid. It's not stupid because we live in a culture that puts so much emphasis on these aspects of us. I mean, if we could all just be open-minded about everything and let everybody be who they are instead of trying to fit into a mold, imagine the world we would have. It's true.
It's really, that would be a beautiful, beautiful thing. At least there seems to be a movement for it.
I hope that it happens, and I hope to see it happen in my lifetime. But that first time, I mean, you hear that they are molding you to be the girl singer, fronting a band or an orchestra. That first time that you're out on stage solo with a band or an orchestra behind you, were you able to be in the moment and drink it all in and say, this is it? Or was it almost as if it was an out-of-body experience for you?
It was definitely out of body because I was so deeply insecure about everything. So the lack of focus is going to be the continuing theme. So when I did get to perform on this huge festival stage that I grew up watching, I remember thinking to myself, I shouldn't be here. I don't know anything about jazz. Like, everyone here thinks that I suck. Why am I here? What am I doing? I suck, like while on stage. And then only the couple of moments where I sat at the piano and played and sang did I have that out of body experience where I was like, oh, am I on stage right now? You know, because that to me is when like real art is made, is when the artist is no longer aware of what's happening. They're having like a true cathartic experience, and that happens more frequently now, depending on the venue. But those moments that you're speaking of, where you're like, wow, this is what I'm meant to be doing, didn't come again till later, to like my 30s. I spent most of my 20s fishing, throwing out the line, not knowing where to go. I was like, oh, someone actually wants me to do a young artist program as an opera singer. Okay, fine, I'll do that. I'm not really doing opera anymore. Oh, wait, you want me to join your folk band called the Jammin' Divas and go on tour in Australia? Okay, yeah, sure, I'll do that. Oh, you want me to sing with your blues band and basically scream sing? Fine, yeah, totally. You want me to play weddings? Oh, obviously I'll play weddings, but give me the money. I was fishing through my whole 20s. So,
Carol Channing, she called her book Just Lucky, I guess. And someone asked her, they says, why did you call the book Just Lucky, I guess? And she's, well, it's like the person asked the prostitute, how did you get into a business like this? Just lucky, I guess. So, we are in a business where I am, with all due respect to you and because I'm in the same business, we are a step away from prostituting ourselves on a daily basis.
100%.
We go into a situation trying to be, if this is what you want, this is what I will give you. And you are constantly doing that. The confidence obviously is there. It's very obvious in your performance. How did you develop the confidence with all of this background that you were bringing along with you?
So my therapist would say to me, you need to have the confidence in yourself and then it will exude. But for me, it was actually having other people say, like, enough times, that was excellent, or you really moved me, or like I was in tears, or that song reminded me of my aunt who blank, and then they break down into tears, or a student who would be like, I feel like you're really listening to me. And I'd be like, I am really listening to you. I'm like, I'm not a horrible person. Like, I literally care about you, my student, or you, audience member, or you, random person on the street. Like, I really do care. I'm not a bad person. Like, I had to keep telling myself, like, they're not just saying you're good, and I'm not just getting these opportunities because I mean, I've been with Dan forever. It's not like I was prostituting myself, like we were saying. Like going back in time, maybe I should have gotten married later, go faster. I don't know.
Well, let's say I just saw you perform either at Birdland or 55 Bar. You walk off stage, and I walk up to you and I go, Nicole, that was absolutely amazing. How do you respond?
Okay. Can I answer that by giving you an anecdote? The answer, I will tell you in a second. I'll tell you the answer that I got once and why I will never respond that way. I was watching a singer who I thought was incredible. I really admired. And that exact thing happened. I watched the whole set and I was like, wow, she's such an amazing singer. I'm so inspired by this. And then after she got off stage, it was a small club. It's not like she was performing at Madison Square Garden and I somehow got backstage and tried to talk to this famous. No, it's like basically a peer who I thought was awesome. And I went up to this peer and said, wow, that was just so incredible. I loved it. You know, it just, thank you so much. She's like, thanks. And that was it. Just this, like when people smile with their mouth, but not with their eyes.
Mm-hmm.
I can see through that so quickly. And I remember going, then I realized how important the audience is. That's when I realized that you can give the best performance of your life, but if you treat the people who were open to you giving them that experience with like crap, it's not acceptable, because we don't exist without them a lot of the times. Like, we need the audience just as much as the audience needs us. So to answer your question, when I come off the stage at Birdland, someone says, my God, I love that. It's so amazing. I look them straight in the eye and I freaking mean it. And I'm like, thank you so much. What is your name? And then they're always like, I'm Jamie. I'm like, thank you so much, Jamie. Is this your first time at Birdland? Yeah, I'm here from Seattle. I'm like, wow, it's so great. Well, thank you so much. I really hope you stay in touch, you know. And then maybe I'll give them a postcard, or if I was smart, I would ask them to sign up for the mailing list. But then at the same time, that also feels like you were saying before, like a prostituting myself. Like, how do I be authentically kind and interested in somebody, but at the same time, I still need something from them? You know, it's like, so I took away the needing something from them and just was like, thank you. That really means a lot to me, because it freaking does. It really does mean a lot.
Absolutely.
And I feel like that. Like, I
have a stock phrase and I say, thank you so much. I love hearing it, but tell everybody else.
I love that.
Oh, it's great. It's great. But, you know, it's so wonderful that you say this. You know, Time Daily tells a story that she went to see James Earl Jones when he was in a show called The Great White Hope. And she went up to him afterwards, James Earl Jones. And she said, oh my God, she was a teenager. And she said that performance was what propelled her to want to really pursue this as a career. And she said, wow, this was incredible. And his response to her was, well, I wish you had been here last night. It was a much better performance. And she's, but I wasn't there last night. I was here tonight. And I will tell you, Nicole, I have been very, very fortunate. I have interviewed people from the biggest names in show business to people who are just starting out, to people who are having, steady, wonderful careers like yourself. And everybody has that same insecurity. And again, you know, as a man who's now 60 years old, I've reached the point where it's easier for me to say, thank you. Thank you for being here. It means a lot to me. And we need to embrace that, you know, especially you, because you are so wonderful at what you do. And that's why I love celebrating you today. And it's great to get this background and to get this history, because a lot of people may think, oh, that's Nicole. It's easy for her. And it's not, it's never that easy or anything.
Wow. That is such an excellent point. And very appreciated, actually. I love telling the story because I definitely didn't do anything the easy way. I was a late bloomer in this industry, and I still feel like I'm catching up. But I do have big plans now for the future, now that I'm actually able to focus
Well, we're going to talk about a few of those things because, first of all, I want to talk about your current project. We do have, the graphic here, and I want to let everyone know that we will have the details for how you can get her music. All of that will be in the subject when you go to YouTube when this is posted after this, so that all that information will be there for people to be able to find. But what can you tell us about this latest project and how it came to be and why it is so important to you at this point in your life?
All right. So All Wandering Hearts came out in a year ago, almost exactly, during the pandemic. Ironically, it's called All Wandering Hearts because before the pandemic, I was constantly traveling and living out of a suitcase, hence the suitcase, which was my grandmother's, who was
Oh, wow.
such an important part of my life. I'm about to sneeze.
Yes. God bless you.
Thank you. Okay.
God bless you.
That was one
As
of
they say, it must be true. So it's your grandmother's suitcase,
Okay.
and your grandmother is watching us.
I know. She's like, that damn right was the suitcase. Where is it now? So I was living out of a suitcase, and I felt like I was doing the music thing. It was so great. But at the same time, many of the songs that I wrote were about missing home. What really is home? The conflict of money versus art, the actual aspect of like traveling and like how it makes you feel viscerally. So that was the theme of the album, and then it came out during a time where everyone was sitting at home on their bums. So very
Do you like being on the road? Do you like being on the road?
I actually do. I really do love it. I've only done a couple tours that were like a month or so at a time, but generally what it would be like a week away, home, work like crazy and random venues, gigs, etc. Maybe a weekend away, work like crazy, fly again for a week somewhere, come home, work 2 weeks. But I always had the suitcase out, and that's why I have the suitcase on the cover. And I love that, but I've always had a wandering heart. I've always had wanderlust. I love to travel either by myself to exotic places. I love culture tourism, not just parking on a beach and drink margarita tourism. I just came back from Morocco actually.
Wow.
2.5 weeks ago. Yeah.
What was that like traveling to Morocco in the midst of all this?
Well, I did unfortunately get COVID in November last year. By going to work, I believe I went to a gig and then came home, gave it to Dan, but didn't give it to anybody else. And it was very mild and we were very grateful. But then I developed a long-term symptom that came about in February where my smell went back to being like I had lost it, and then it came back and now it's distorted. It's called parosmia. And so since February, everything smells the same. Like garlic smells the same as onion, smells the same as dog, smells the same as air conditioning fluid. I mean, it's twisted. It's twisted. So in order to get me, I got vaccinated, obviously, but I was like, well, I'm already suffering with this insane thing and I'm vaccinated. And so I started traveling during COVID safely. And it's fine. You just book direct flights because you don't want your negative test to expire. And everywhere I've gone so far, there has been no tourism at all. And the places that I've traveled, like Brazil before that insane variant, and Morocco, they suffered so much that it made me really appreciate America. So in Morocco, our guide, who took us everywhere for a week, he was so wonderful. And then he ended up bringing us to meet his family. He said that the Moroccan government didn't give them a dime in unemployment, still made them pay full taxes, not a dollar. And he takes care of his entire family and immediate family. So it made me have a real appreciation for America. And though I was feeling immense dissatisfaction and shame for 4 years, this reminded me like why people want to come here, because we did get taken care of, and a lot of our favorite venues did get, bailed out either by the people or by grants. Like, we're very fortunate in America, and I was fortunate.
Thank you to all of the artists who stepped up. I mean, there are certain organizations that I feel, and you know who you are, that I feel were lacking in terms of stepping up to the plate. But thank God for the artists these are our homes, and people really stepped up to the plate to make that happen. Yeah. I want to ask you, with this project, are you able to rest on your laurels and celebrate this creation, or are you very focused on what's next for you?
What an interesting question. I would say that I'm going to celebrate it one more time on August 6th at the 55 Bar in Greenwich Village, and the early set from 5:30 to 8:30 with my band. And then I don't have any more shows as a leader booked in New York City. I'm waiting for the Birdland big band to come back, which I hope comes back soon.
Hope so.
But my new focus is I want to make a jazz album in the style of Norah Jones and Melody Gardot.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Gardot writes her music. I write my music. Norah Jones writes some of it, but they both play the piano, Norah more. But my goal is to release with an excellent producer who has agreed and signed on, and people follow me, I will eventually announce that, but I can't announce it yet until we have it in writing.
Speaking of writing, I want to ask you, before we do run out of time, when did you realize that you could also write your own music? Were you writing as a young girl as well, or did that come much later?
Well, I had a penchant for prose, for English, and also for lack of a better word, bullshit. I was really good at circling back, making people feel like I was saying what they needed to hear. And I could do that also in school, but I couldn't really focus in school. So I never really felt like I was retaining anything, but I was also excellent at manipulating the material that I had to make it seem like I knew what I was talking about. I feel like I still do that, but without the manipulating part, because I've grown into this. But look, I already forgot what the question was.
When the writing began, but we are going to run out of time. But before we run out of time, I want to play this game with you.
Oh gosh.
These are questions that are generic questions that are not necessarily directed at you, but these are questions that are sent to me. The first question is, in which year of your life did you change the most? They get tougher.
Either 35, 36.
Okay.
The pandemic year.
Okay. That makes sense.
Or 30. When I realized I was decent at what I do.
What is the best thing that you could possibly hear about your 5-year-old self?
At the moment, that like what someone could have said to that little 5-year-old.
About who she was at that time.
I would say, I don't know. That's like such an intense thing. I would say you are all that you need, and you are more than capable, and super adorable.
Absolutely. Well, she certainly is. And who is the person that you most wanted to meet, but you never did?
I'm sorry. I know we're like short on time.
We can go as long as I want.
But I still could meet, like Carole King.
Oh, wow. Wow. She's on my bucket list of interviews as well. I would really love to interview her.
Yeah. Absolutely.
What is the quality in your father that you most like to share?
Being very talented at whatever he puts his mind to.
And what have you most envied in your sibling?
The fact that I was the first child, and so they were trying on. They were doing all the hypotheses.
I'm the oldest child. I called myself the experimental child. Everything was tried out.
Exactly. And by the time the second one comes, they're like, oh, we don't even care.
What is the best thing that you've ever gotten for free?
Any concert that was free, that inspired me. This is the first thing that comes to my brain.
And this is a loaded question. When is, well, let me look at the question again. When do you have the most difficult time telling the truth?
When the outcome affects someone else negatively.
Wow.
Not me.
Great. Well, I want to thank you for telling the truth with me today.
Sure
we are out of time, but before we go, don't go anywhere right now. I want to thank everyone for being here. As Nicole said earlier, you could have been anywhere else for the past hour. And the fact that you chose to spend it with us means the world to me. And I know I can speak for Nicole when I say this. Thank you for being here. I don't take it for granted. Your time is valuable to you and it's valuable to me. So thank you for being here. Again, if this is your first time being here, please subscribe to Richard Skipper Celebrates. I'm all about celebrating artists, and I've got some phenomenal artists coming up over the next few weeks. I'm already booked for the next 9 weeks, and I am so excited by the people that are on the list. So please subscribe, hit the reminder button, and you can get a reminder when we go live. And don't worry, you're not going to be inundated with emails and everything. You'll just get a reminder when I'm going live. If you enjoyed today's show, and I hope you did, please hit the like button, leave a comment on YouTube, and feel free to share this with others, because what that does is that increases the ranking here. And if you don't have the time to sit back, well, obviously, if you're at this point, you've watched today's show, you can also listen to these on podcast, wherever you listen to your favorite podcast, Apple, Spotify, it's all there. I also end every show by telling everyone to go out and do something nice for somebody else without expecting anything in return. Go to your Facebook friends list, and the 9th name that pops up, reach out with a phone call. Not an email message, not a text message, not a private message, but a phone call. And let that person know what they mean in your lives. Because as a dear friend of mine says, we're all in this together, but we're not in the same boat. But I always say, if you're going to go out in a boat, make sure that you bring a skipper along. Now, Nicole, I'm going to leave the screen and I'm going to give you the final word all to yourself. Anything that you want to talk about that we talked about today that you want to expound upon, anything that we didn't talk about that you wish that we had, or just any message that you want to put out to everyone who's watching right now. And I want to take this moment to say thank you. Thank you for the gifts that you've given to the world and that you're going to continue to give to the world. And if I can make it happen, I'm going to be sitting there in the audience on August 6th cheering you on. So thank you, thank you, thank you for being here today. I love you. You're the best. Thank you.
I love you. You're an angel. Okay. Wow. So everything that Richard just said, I mean, so many parts of this interview made me almost tear up, or actually tear up, because it's so authentic and true. And I think that that's very necessary for people to be open and kind to each other. So I want to thank Richard and Rose for having me today and giving me an opportunity to speak my truth to you. I really mean it, that I love chatting and connecting with people. So feel free to message me if you have a question, if something I said resonated, if you didn't understand, if you disagreed, or if you just want to connect. I love to connect with new friends, and that's my dog. So I guess that's the dog I was talking about. I guess that's my cue. I'm probably gonna head out, be kind to each other, keep supporting the arts, and Richard Skipper Celebrates should be celebrated in the history books. Mwah.